Hello and welcome to the 52 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Tonight's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. I want to also say thank you to Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. Easy to use and affordable technology that makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level of the sport. See pitchlogic.com for more information. Happy Monday evening, everyone. And it is a very happy Monday evening because we are joined solo by the great Fitty Barrels. Fitzy, this is going to be like just a little fireside chat, you and I, this evening.
You know, I hope you brought the graham crackers. I got the marshmallows. You know, we have some s'mores going here. It's been a long time, Rune, since we've had a one-on-one. This is exciting for me.
So great. Fitzy, and I want you to know that of all the things that we've said on the podcast, like Kurt Reed, definitely, we got a lot of run out of Kurt Reed, but the new theme, like I got a text from a coach tonight that was asking about NIL. And he also said, by the way, love the pods. Hashtag French is an outrage. That really, that might be your best all-time work, Fitzy.
I mean, a fact's a fact, Runes. I mean, that's all I got. I didn't.
Oh, we need that on t-shirts. French is an outrage. I mean, come on. So good. Hey, let's jump in here, Fitzy. You and I'm going to write a piece on. I'm saying it into a hot mic, which means I'm committed to it. In the next week or so, I'm going to write a piece on DSR, Diamond Sports Rankings, because now's the time to be talking about this. You know, this year's committee is using RPI. Apparently, they're using KPI too, which really concerns me. But I'll be that as it may. We got a lot of metrics. I would like less metrics and more research, more studying teams and results. But be that as it may, I'll do a little tease of some DSR stuff at the end. Let's kind of take a 30,000-foot view of last weekend, and then we can dive deep where we see fit. To me, I thought the series of the weekend was Tennessee taking the series at Kentucky. Incredible crowds at Kentucky Proud Park in Lexington. Series could have gone either way. Kentucky wins an incredible game on Friday. Tennessee, their offense kind of just gets off on Saturday, and then an incredible game on Sunday. I'm going to give you a statement, Fitzy, and you can feel free to amend this, go wherever you want. Sometimes with series like this, we say, oh, that felt like a super regional. I actually would disagree with that on this one. That felt like Omaha. Like that felt like two Omaha teams to me. What do you think about that?
I think you're right that it felt like two Omaha teams, but oftentimes you've got two Omaha teams playing in a super regional, and that's I think
fair.
What made it feel like a super regional was certainly just the intensity of the whole thing, right? I mean, you get that intensity in those on campus skirmishes that you don't really quite get in Omaha in some cases. Like it's a more grand feel, obviously, when you're playing in front of 25,000 people, but I don't know. There's just a different kind of intensity and kind of chippiness, nastiness that goes into, playing on campus with two teams that don't particularly care for each other. I think that was clear. That was the case in this instance. Two really good teams, though. I mean, certainly walked away from that thinking, this series was on a razor's edge, and I was watching that game on Sunday, and Kentucky was up 6-2. And it felt like Kentucky was in complete control, and they're had with the momentum. They're playing with all kinds of passion, and it felt like they should have just kind of pulled away. But yet you couldn't shake the feeling that, hey, wait a minute, it's Sunday in the SEC, and it's Tennessee. They're gonna make a run. Of course, it wound up being 13-11. That's just the way things go nowadays. But it was a prize fight, and if it weren't for Christian Moore going nuts, it's a different deal. But I mean, that's one of the reasons Tennessee's so good is they got a lot of guys who are capable of going nuts. I mean, they're just loaded offensively, man. They're scary.
Yep. I remain just a little, like when I say I remain concerned about Tennessee's pitching, let me put a caveat on that. Like if they're going to win the national title, right? Like I'm not saying like they're going to get upset in a regional. I mean, that could happen. We know that, but I still don't feel like warm and cuddly about Tennessee's pitching. But to your point, the offense is outrageous. And Kentucky Proud Park played very offensive. The wind was howling out to right center field. It was really hard to keep a ball in there. I came away very impressed. That was my first like extended look at Kentucky's position player group. Like I really bore down on them, and they're awesome. Like that's an awesome position player group.
Yep.
Like even better than I expected. Given and people have been telling me they're really good. Let me give you. I'm going to give you another statement, Fitzy, that you can go wherever you want with. I think Blake Burke's the most improved player in the country. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I could come up with some others to rival him, but somebody asked about him in the chat today, and my thought was similar. I mean, it's like this guy's always had talent, right? He's always had power. That's the main thing he's had was power, but he was just kind of a one-dimensional masher in the past. And you watch him now, and he's a lot more than that. Runes. I mean, you talked about it, but like you also played defense this weekend. I mean, the agility that he showed, did not see that coming. Did not see that coming whatsoever. The fact that he's not just a all or nothing hacker. I mean, he's got a lot more doubles. That was always a knock on him in the past. Was like guys that have a lot of home runs but very few doubles. It's just not a profile that I love. And he's now he's driving the gaps more, and he's just like he's taking what's given to him. He's not just selling out for the long ball. He's just a more complete hitter and a more complete player all the way around. So even though he was already a valuable player, an accomplished player, he's so much better now. To your point, I mean, exactly right.
Yeah, it's crazy. The OPS is up 400 points. He only had 25 extra base hits last year, and he's got 34 of them already. I mean,
Wow.
Man, they're frightening. Hey, I'm gonna kind of whipsaw you around the country, Fitzy. Another big series, like one that's really top of mind for me. Cal swept the Beavers, and that's got all kinds of ramifications. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. Let me do negative, and then we'll go positive. The negative is like I felt like the West Coast kind of needs Oregon State to be a flagship program, and they're starting to not. Like they're still really good, but carry the weight of the whole West Coast. They're kind of not like they've got their own house that they got to get in order right now.
Yeah.
Like this is, they've lost a series to USC. Now they're swept by Cal. Arizona's winning the pack right now. And they also are 11-9 in non-conference, which is just bizarro world. So that's the negative. The good news is we knew Cal has talent, and Ian May is pitching, and Rodney Green, our good friend Roxy Bernstein claims to have gotten Rodney Green right. And if that's true, Roxy, well done. Because Rodney
job,
Green Jr.,
Rox.
yes, well done. And, Caleb Lomavita has just been awesome all year. So, what's your take on that, Fitzy?
Yeah, I think going back to what you said first about Oregon State being the team that we kind of thought needed to be the team that carries the West, you're right. Because I don't see another team in the West that feels like a national championship contender. I mean, like we like Irvine. I like Arizona. I feel like I could see Arizona making an Omaha run. They don't feel like a national title contender though. Like Irvine doesn't either. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm selling those guys short, but the Beavers feel like the team. Like that's the team that's got to be it. And you look up right now and they're 10-7 in the league. 2.5 games back of Arizona in the standings. Their RPI is down 15. Like right now, there's no one else in that league that feels like a regional host. I mean, Arizona could, they're in first place. They're playing well. Arrows up. RPI is still just in the 30s though. Like they've got a lot of work to do still. And it feels like if it's not the Beavers, then, I mean, is it possible, Roots? We have a year where there are no hosts in the West. I mean, I don't know. Ultimately, I think the Beavers will host. I think they'll get figured out. But like the main thing, I think, is the bullpen right now. That's a problem for them. They need to get that piece figured out. And I still think they have guys back there, and they're just not doing it right now, And so maybe at some point that just becomes who they are. I don't know. But like, what's your take on their bullpen?
Yeah, it's just, like they're a little banged up, and so that's like Aiden. It all starts with Aiden Jimenez, right? Like Aiden Jimenez, I thought was a really important arm for them coming in this year, and he's out for the year. And so whether he was going to be a rotation piece or he was going to be like a key reliever, regardless, 50 to 80 innings just disappeared, and everybody has to jump up a spot. And Leif Palmer, he pitched a little bit this week and it didn't go well. And, AJ Hutchinson, I had a lot of hope for him because he's a submariner and he's had fits and starts. So, Micah McDowell is out still, and that, like their position player group hasn't been. Caraway's not back yet, I don't think. I didn't see him in box scores this weekend.
I did not see Caraway. McDowell did play this weekend. I think he DH'd and then he got back into center field, I believe, in one of those games. So that at least
good.
That's a good thing, because I mean he's obviously one of the best players and a star.
Yeah.
And the fact that they've been okay without him too.
100%. They're still the best roster out there, right? Like I'm kind of torn. Like I want Oregon State to host because I want that fan base to have that with this magical team, but or what could be a magical team. But I also don't want Santa Barbara or Irvine sent there, which is going to happen. And so, like, easy for me to say, but part of me wants no West Coast hosts. Like, just spread those teams out and let's see how good they are or not. But I'm with you.
Point.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, Arizona could end up being the host. You're not kidding. Like they're just playing better than everybody else right now.
And it's one of those things, Runes, where, again, I saw them early. It was at Frisco, and they didn't have a good weekend at Frisco. It was at 1-2. I think they won one game out there, and it was 1-3 on that trip. And at that time they're kind of struggling, and Chip Hale was talking about how we're just not playing winning baseball. But you could see the pieces. I mean, the weekend starters in particular just jumped out at me, from the beginning in this era where it just feels like there's not a lot of starting pitching around the country. And when you've got a Jackson Kent and a Clark Candiati and a Cam Walty, it felt like, hey, we got three guys with real stuff, that we're running out there. That's a good trio. And like the bullpen, it felt like you got a lot of low slot guys and, righties and lefties mixing. There's a lot of mix and match ability there, which I really liked. And it felt like maybe they were a little light offensively to me compared to a usual Arizona team. But I mean, you still had like some physicality there with a Brendan Summerhill and obviously Mason White's a stud. We all know that, one of the best players on the West Coast. And it just matters some of the other guys kind of growing up around those guys. And I just think that again, I've talked about this a lot this year. Teams that have real pitching to me stand out, because there's just so little of that to go around, and it feels like they do. And, and they play in an offensive yard, and they're still pitching pretty well. And so, I mean, those three weekend starters, man, to have three guys with ERAs less than 3.5, in the Pac-12 when you play it in Tucson, to me, that's very loud in this day and age.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. And you know what? I want to say one thing about Chip Hale. I've said it before, but when I think of a guy like Chip Hale was a major league manager, like he's a big league manager. To my knowledge, he's the only current head coach in college baseball that was a big league manager, like one of those 30 jobs. And when I think of that profile, I think of guys that are really good, like on the field instruction. But I think what Chip Hale is doing right now, he is really good at that stuff, but his program plan for Arizona right now is really elite. Like he said before the season, when they were picked 9th by me and the coaches in the pack, he said, we've got an older pitching staff and we need them to be good early so this young position player group can get their feet wet. And that's exactly what has happened. And all those older pitchers have pitched way better than their previous numbers. Like they've improved. And part of that was Chip Hale also said, hey, if Wake Forest can lead the country in ERA, why can't Arizona have great pitching?
Absolutely.
And so he convinced his school to invest in Kevin Vance. And I always forget their stats guy's name, but I think it's John Jarorin, or I'll get his name. But anyway, they did the whole kit and caboodle for the next level of pitching. And it's paying dividends. So Arizona's resume is a little odd for me, but their team is very viable, to your point.
And I mean, I like their resume actually. I like the fact that they played a neat non-conference schedule. They won that series early against Northeastern, who's got a good overall record. It's a good RPI series win for them. They went on the road to San Diego, won 1 out of 3. They played Frisco, and it felt like they did some neat things in non-conference. It's weird that they're only 11-10, I guess, in those games. But like once we've gotten into conference play. They've been a buzzsaw, man. Like, with that long winning streak there for a while in the middle of March and April. and they had that Louisiana Tech series, which like looks better now after Louisiana Tech just won a series at Dallas Baptist. Arizona swept those guys in non-conference. So I think it's a neat resume. I really do. The RPI doesn't quite match up yet with what I feel like, the kind of team that they are, but it's getting there.
Yeah, and they're to your point, they're non-conference strength of schedule. The committee's going to like. They're going to like what the teams they've played. I'm 100% with you. John DeRowan is the gentleman's name, who's their director of player development. Came from the Northeast with Kevin Vance, and so anyway, Arizona's a neat story in the midst of that. Let's talk about the Big 12 for a second, Fitzy. To me, the two series results that stood out were Texas Tech swept West Virginia, and Texas Tech at home versus Texas Tech on the road feels like actually two separate teams. Like, it is unbelievable how unbeatable they are at home, and how Texas Tech can be a little perplexing on the road. And then Kansas State backing up that win at Northeastern with a series win over Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State won the Sunday game, and that was huge. But go wherever you want, Fitzy. But those were two big results in the Big 12 for me.
Agreed. And you make a great point about Texas Tech. We've always talked about how hard they are to beat in Lubbock, and this year's is certainly more the same. I mean, they're 21-3 at home, 6-8 on the road. So it's just to your point, just Jekyll and Hyde as far as that's concerned. But boy, good luck going in there and beating those guys. And West Virginia is a good club that was tied for first place heading this weekend, and it was Tech shut them down. I mean, good. Especially, I really like that West Virginia offensive unit, and they only scored 7 runs, I think, in 3 games. So that's loud to me. It feels like that. The arrow is up on Tech, but I say that, but right before this weekend, they lost 4 straight, right? I mean, granted, 2 of those were at Arkansas and 2 of them were at TCU. And, I mean, TCU seems like maybe they're figuring some things out. The Big 12 is so hard. I just said that feels like maybe TCU is figuring things out, and they lost series at Texas, right? So it's like, who knows? It just feels like these teams are beating each other up. There's a lot of home field advantage at play here. We're certainly seeing that. I don't know where this leaves us in the Big 12, Runes. Like, are there any Omaha teams in this league? I mean, is it just like a bunch of middle of the pack kind of like fringe, it feels like a bunch of regional teams, but I mean, I don't even really see like a slam dunk host at this point.
Yeah, it's funny when you were saying that, like, I was thinking about Texas Tech, like, and it's kind of a microcosm in the Big 12. I really like the rosters in this league.
Yeah.
I really like how the Big 12 this year has had a bit of an SEC feel to it, where it's 10 weeks now and everybody's just pounding each other. But I do feel like, as far as like the strength of the top of the league, I think if you made me pick your top 8 teams, I think I would take the ACC over the SEC. And I know that's blasphemy.
Wow.
Now, the top 4 teams in the SEC is a special group, but I think teams 5 through 8 in the ACC, first of all, I think the 8 teams in the ACC are hard to rank. And then, but I guess I shouldn't be afraid to say it. I like teams 5 through 8 in the ACC, whoever they are, better than I like teams 5 through 8 in the SEC. And so it's a long way of saying this, getting back to the Big 12. That's where I'm worried about the Big 12. As much as I like those teams, the SEC and the ACC are going to be very formidable in the postseason. And these teams will be tested. I will say that they will be battle tested. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. I'll tell you this, Fitzy. I don't think Oklahoma is going to run away from the league. They look like they're going to that. That's not been the theme of the league this year.
No, I'm with you on that, and that's another team that's just been so up and down. But at the moment, they're up, and they've got a 7-game winning streak going. But I mean, yeah, it's just there's a lot to process here. Kansas State is a team that I have been holding stock in all year long. I've been refused to sell my Kansas State stock.
Don't sell it. I'm going to give you reason to hold your stock in a minute.
Well, and I think you mentioned in our group chat. I think moving Jackson Wentworth into the rotation makes so much sense for them. And Pete Hughes, he mentioned to me when I saw him last week up at, Northeastern, he said, they had to use Wentworth in relief that game. It went 11 innings, and they had like blown a big lead, and he was kind of bummed that they had to do that because he wanted to start him on Friday night. Uh, and he said, we just had to win this game. It's too important. This RPI road game at Northeastern, but like that's the answer. He said the key for us is to get length in our rotation, and that's the guy who can do it. And can I steal your? Now I'll credit you with your comp because I love what you said about Wentworth in our group chat, Runes.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
The Connor Fenlong comp.
Yeah.
Last year for Indiana State. That's perfect because I mean it's going to be cutter after cutter after cutter. And sure, Wentworth, he's got 4 pitches. He'll show you, more of a curveball, and he's got a little change up, and once in a while he even throw a 4-seamer. But it's like cutter, 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 cutter. Here it comes, and it's so effective. And he's been so good for them all year long. He's been their most reliable arm. I just think you need to get length in your rotation, and he's the guy that can give it to you. And Tyler Rule as well, getting healthier again. I feel like there's reason to believe that Kansas State can still make a real run here.
Yeah, and Owen Borma has not had a great year, but he's a veteran, and yeah, and Pete Hughes even said coming into this weekend, like the Kansas State hitters have not gotten on it yet. Like it's been their best offense is still ahead of them, and
Yeah.
I think I'll put a bow on it this way, Fitzy. The Big 12 is going to probably have 6 or 7 teams in the postseason. I think they could sneak 7 in there.
Oh yeah.
And not one of those 7 teams is going to be favored to or even like a cheeky pick, or what's the word I'm looking for, like the hipster pick to win a regional. What's the adjective I'm looking for there?
Yeah,
Chic?
that works. Chic works. Yeah.
Yeah, chic. That's what I want. But I think they're all going to be viable. I like the teams. There's no separation, and when there's no separation, that means you ain't hosting. I'm sorry, but
Right.
you're just now Oklahoma. If they keep the separation they've got now, but they've not proven that they can be that team every week. They're the most. The irony right now is that Oklahoma is the most volatile team in the Big 12. So of course they're in first place by themselves.
Yeah, I mean they've got this current streak, as we said, 7 straight games, which includes, by the way, a sweep of Kansas State just 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. But before that, they had lost series to Oklahoma State. They'd gotten swept by Lamar at home. They lost series at home to West Virginia. So it's like, up is down and down is up in this league from week to week. And it's just, I don't know who I really believe in at this point. I'm holding my stock in Kansas State, but like, they need to figure some things out too, as we've seen. But I feel like they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, let's talk about the Big 12 tournament for a second, then we'll take a break and we'll finish. We all know that postseason baseball is right around the corner. This is crazy. The Big 12 tournament and all the big tournaments, it's going to start on Tuesday, May 21st. I mean, that is right around the corner. Again, I'm talking about the Phillips 66 Big 12 championship in baseball. It's 10 teams vying for the Big 12 title, climate-controlled Globe Life Field, home of the Texas Rangers. It is the only college baseball tournament that it's held in one of the 30 big league parks. Here's the nice thing for fans. You can elevate your experience with new premium ticket options. You can do premier seats. You can do club access like our man Kendall Rogers. Kendall Rogers is not going into Globe Life Field without club access. You kidding me? All kinds of complimentary perks. Secure your tickets today. You visit globelifefield.com/Big12. Go to globelifefield.com/Big12 and lock that up. All right. Let's take a quick break and we will come back and finish the nation. All right, Aaron J. Fitt, we are back. Let's do, okay, I'm just gonna mention the Big Ten. I'm very frustrated by the Big Ten. I got like your rant on the Summit League last week on the podcast was all time great. Here's all I want to say about the Big Ten. It's a 2-bid league. I don't know what else to say. It's a 2-bid league, and it's going to be Nebraska and whoever wins the tournament, and that's it, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're not. I mean, it honestly, it feels like maximum 2-bid league. Like, what happens if Nebraska wins the conference tournament?
Yeah,
I
big
mean,
problem.
Then what? Or what happens if Nebraska falls off? I mean, right now you're right. They're the only team that has a viable at-large resume. Now, that said, I like what Michigan has done in conference, and I like the fact that they challenge themselves out of conference. But I mean, 96 in the RPI 10 weeks into the year is just does not feel viable. And so, even though I kind of like their team and they pitch a lot better than I thought they would at this point in the year, after kind of starting a little bit slow on the mound, They've got series wins at Iowa and versus Maryland. Like there's a lot of things to like about Michigan's resume, but just those three little letters at RPI is just, it crushes them. And so, yeah, the league feels like a mess. Iowa and Indiana were the two teams heading into the year that we had. Iowa as a top 25 team, and they're 103 in the RPI. I mean, again, it's just a non-starter, from an at-large standpoint. And Indiana, 77, they're in the mix, I guess, striking distance. But I mean, they're 7-5 in the league, and they just haven't been consistent. Maryland, I thought would be still kind of hanging around, and they're not really now. They're 6-9 in the league, like way back 9th place. I mean, there's a lack of teams that have the combination of things you're looking for in a postseason resume. I mean, Illinois is in first place at 10-2, but I don't feel like they've really played the meat of their conference schedule yet. Their RPI 70. So again, like striking range, if they can make a surge, but I don't know if I'm ready to believe on those guys yet, Runes.
Yep. So it's interesting. I was on a plane today, and so that gave me a chance to be on Twitter. And a really like a fan whose opinion I respect, and like a respectful fan. I was going back and forth on Twitter today, and a West Coast fan, like a Beaver fan, and he was talking about, and he was very respectful in the way he phrased this, even though the word agenda is by definition not super respectful. But he talked about like an East Coast baseball agenda. And he, like I was saying, hey, I'm worried if I was the West Coast schools going to the Big Ten, I would be really worried. And my point that I was trying to make is that the Pac-12 was the worst marketed baseball conference in the world outside of maybe the Big Ten. Like the Pac-12 network, the Pac-12 has been invisible for like a decade. And it hurt the conference. There was a it materially hurt the conference. And the Big Ten right now, like it is impossible to be a student of the Big Ten in baseball. Like impossible, I know is a dramatic word, but like it's so hard. And I'm like, if I'm those 4 Pac-12 schools going to the Big Ten, I think it's even worse because at least in the Pac-12, it's a famous baseball conference. The Big Ten is an intriguing baseball conference, but it is invisible. So I feel badly saying the Big Ten is a 2-bid league max, even though I believe it to be the truth, because I know that's going to, like, the coaches in that league are going to be upset by that. But I'm telling you, like, it is so hard to cover Big Ten baseball. Do you agree with me?
I do. I mean, the problem they have with the TV stuff is, it's inescapable. Runes. It's a real issue, and it's just, gosh, I don't know. We've been down the road before with the Big Ten and what they need to do better. I just think it's a matter of how much you care, right?
Yeah.
Like from the league office and the administrations, it's just a matter of how really in are you, or are you just paying lip service to this thing? And I know that's harsh because I know a lot of those administrations really do care. I know that, I'll shout out specifically. I know the people in Indiana really care. That athletic department really cares about baseball. They're very committed. I wonder how many of the other ones around the league are like that.
Yeah, it's the other day, and again, I have to be careful here, but I'll just say it because I think it's the truth. I work for ESPN, I get that, but ESPN Plus, and you could call it XYZQ Plus. It's so easy to be a student of college baseball, and there's no, I got to give the Pac-12 credit, even though it's about to be defunct. They've gone out of their way to help us in the media watch their games. The Big Ten is nowhere to be heard from, and as a result, do I look at results in the Big Ten every single weekend? Do I pull up box scores? Do I look at the releases from the SIDs religiously? It's important to me. It's a really important league to our sport. But as far as seeing it with my own eyeballs, it's like trying to cite Bigfoot. It's really, so again, sorry about the Big Ten rant. We got to get this fixed. Like that league has so much upside in baseball, but no good players or coaches are going to want to stay there if it's invisible. Like one of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons Braden Montgomery went from Stanford to Texas A&M. One of the reasons is visibility. It's not the only reason, but it was hard for his parents to watch him play college baseball. In 2024, that's inexcusable. So
Well said. Well said.
holy cow. It's funny, Fitzy, I'm looking at my itinerary for the podcast. It nowhere does it say Coach Rooney rant, but there we have it. That's what happened.
Well, and I
So,
feel like you kind of did me dirty by setting me up to bag on the Big Ten. I don't want to bag on the Big Ten.
mm-mm.
I like the Big Ten. There's a lot of
Yeah,
great coaches in this league. So you know what? This is on you, Runes. I'm
it's
going to take
me.
it all back. I'm going to take everything
Yeah.
I said back. Big Ten. It is a really. I will say this. It has been repeatedly over the years. In recent years, it's been a league that felt like it was really making strides. And we've had high water marks there in that league. You've had obviously Illinois host being a top 8 seed. That one year and winning a regional. You had Indiana has hosted and won regional and gotten to Omaha. Michigan, of course, got to Omaha. Like there's been a lot of things you could hang your hats on. Iowa's had some nice runs. I mean, um, it just feels like well, there's a lot of things that we could build on, Runes. Let's put it that way. And maybe we can hope that you bring in some traditional powers, some West Coast teams into this league. Maybe, what's the expression about rising tides and all boats and all that,
Yeah, let's all
whatever. I mean,
boats. Yep.
maybe it'll be good for the league. Maybe it'll elevate everybody else's game. But it's just been a disappointing year for them. I mean, I guess that's where I come down. Is right now I was hoping for more from the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, I think like the one program that I think it's going to really hurt this year is Iowa. And
Mm.
and like Iowa has struggled, don't get me wrong, but the thing is like we've all walked away from Iowa because they've got like an untenable RPI 103 or I should say I've walked away from Iowa. Let me just include myself. Iowa is 20-15. Like they're not 15-20. They're over 500 and they're 9-6 in the Big Ten. And I know the RPI is a big problem, but I think if Iowa's a team with eye-popping talent, and if that eye-popping talent was in front of our face over and over again, but right now it's like we see box scores and RPIs, and then thanks for coming out. So I don't know. I am frustrated by I the other day I turned on on Hulu or not Hulu on ESPN Plus. I turned on Florida Gulf Coast and Austin Peay because I wanted to see Lyle Miller Green. Like why can't the Big Ten make it that easy
No.
for me to do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
They're
and you're right. You're exactly right. But also, I'm going to say this that just real quickly on Iowa. I have walked away, and it's not even because of the RPI. It's just because I don't think they throw enough strikes. Like
that's
the
fair.
whole thing we ranked this team on was the really the 3 power arms more than anything else, right? Brack, Obermiller, and Morgan, and all those guys have walk rates over 15%, and it's just they're very talented, and they just don't throw enough strikes for me.
Yeah, and obviously Sam Peterson getting hurt. He's not out for the year, but that was the offense was already not super deep. So, all right, well let's put a bow on that. Big Ten, if you're listening, I'm desperate to watch you play college baseball. Please help me do that. Help everyone do that. Not don't just help Mike Rooney do that. We all need to see your good players and coaches play.
Help me help you, Big Ten.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Fitzy, now you think if I've set you up to fail. Watch me set you up to fail here. There was a big series in your heart last weekend that took place in Brookline, Mass, because you have been a big proponent of the Northeastern Huskies, but also your UNCW Seahawks.
Yeah,
So in theory, you couldn't lose or win that series,
that's right.
but that was a big weekend for your Seahawks.
Yeah, and we like to think of the glass as half full around here, Rune. So it was definitely a win-win weekend for me personally.
Yes. Yes.
2 teams that I think I projected both of these teams to be in a regional in our CAA preview. Wilmington's playing good baseball, and I think they're just a good club, man. Like they're just a balanced veteran team. To go up there on the road though and pitch where they did against I think a very dangerous Northeastern offense. I mean that position player group, even though some of their stars from last year haven't really gotten it going yet. I mean, Mike Sirota and Cam Maldonado, uh, those guys were so good last year, and they've not been this year. And it feels like for Northeastern to get where they really need to go, where they want to go, those 2 guys just plain have to find it. And we'll see if that
Mm-hmm.
happens or not. But anyway, even regardless, I mean, Northeastern has a lot of firepower, with the 2 twin towers there with McGregor and Lane and Luke Beckstein having a great year, on and on. I mean, it's a very good team. Wilmington went up there and pitched really well. I mean, Zane Taylor, just your classic veteran sinker ball guy. Gave him 7 innings, a 1-run ball in the rubber game. He's a really nice piece. You've got RJ Sales, you got, Schaefer, just really quality veteran arms. I mean, Sales coming back from injury has been a huge difference maker from my mind for Wilmington, because he's the guy that has really the most electric stuff out of that group. And the other guys are, pitchability, and, Schaefer's got the angle and all that stuff, but like Sales is real stuff, like mid 90s with big time field of spin. He 6 innings, a 3-hit shutout ball in the opener there with 10 strikeouts. I mean, sets the tone for them. He gives them the real ace that I think they've needed. We know they have firepower at Wilmington as usual with Tanner Thatch, who's the big power guy in the middle, and of course you got Trevor Marsh, who's been there forever and just a winning baseball player, hits for power. And I like their team a lot. I think they're balanced. I think they're a threat to win a regional, and that's been the case often for Wilmington, and they've never done it. And I've often said that I think they're the best program in college baseball that's never won a regional. It feels like it's only a matter of time before that changes, and this could be the year.
Yeah, and you're right. Like they have more pedigree than they get credit for. They've been to 11 NCAA tournaments in the last 20 years. For a air quotes mid-major program, that's a lot of regional
Yep.
appearances. Like, it's in the league that they're in, the CAA. It's not easy to go 11 for 20 with regional appearances. Like, you got to really, I mean, that's like eye-popping consistency to me.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, it was like that under Mark Scaff, and it's continuing under Randy Hood. Of course, he was there for so long, as Scaff's right-hand man, but not surprising to me that they've kept on going. And, they've invested in their facilities. They've got a really nice practice facility out there, the hitting facility beyond the right field wall. And I think there's more good things to come, but it's a lot going for that program, and I have a ton of respect for that coaching staff and the job that they've done.
Yep. Amen. Hey, let's wrap up the ACC, Fitzy. NC State was the headliner for me. They've got this, you guys, I think, referenced it on the Nerdcast, but NC State now has series wins over at Clemson, over Duke, and then over UNC. I mean, those are 3 big time series wins. Like, you can just shut your resume down right there. Like, that's an NCAA tournament resume. I'm sorry. Like, unless you just burn the stadium down from here, like, you're going to the NCAA tournament now.
Yeah.
Now, that said, NC State also was swept by Louisville and Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken. So they have tried to burn the stadium down in their spare time.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were there for some of that, Fitzy. NC State, that's a big weekend.
Yeah, huge weekend. Obviously, a rivalry series, against the top 10 team. I mean, in North Carolina, that's the thing. North Carolina, they've got 4 series losses, but they're still 15-6 in the league, with a number 7 RPI. They've done so well in the non-conference stuff for the most part. And they haven't gotten swept at all. And they didn't get swept this weekend either. After losing twice in the extra innings, North Carolina does come back and win convincingly in the series finale. But, I think here's the thing. NC State, the reason I'm optimistic going forward, first of all, you're right. Like, they're in a position of strength. They're already 12-9 in the league with 3 marquee series wins. I mean, I think basically 14-16 generally gets you in as an ACC team. Like their chances to do that, even though they've got 3 tough series remaining at Florida State, at Virginia versus Wake. They can win a couple of those series, then you're looking at maybe a host. I mean, really, like, if they can just get a little bit more consistency, especially in the midweek stuff, they've had some midweek troubles, but I'm excited because Dom Fritton seems like he's figuring it out again. He was a freshman All-American last year. Runes a preseason All-American coming into this season. That left-hander with kind of the invisible, that it's only maybe 93 touch of 4 or whatever, but it's just got the elite vertical approach angle thing that everyone's chasing nowadays. And he just walked too many guys early in the year, and they couldn't get him through like 4 or 5 innings. What it seemed like he's doing now is just like, I'm going to throw the fastball down the middle. And like, if you could square it up, a hat tip to you. North Carolina ran into 3 solo homers against them, but a lot of times they were just missing the fastball or popping it up. And it's just like, all we got to do is throw strikes with that pitch. It's good enough. And so I think he's getting close now. I really do. I think the emergence of Derek Smith in their bullpen to give them a second really kind of shut down power arm, it feels like, alongside Duden, the freshman, who's really a stud, man. Boy, is he special.
Whew.
It's a great arm. There's more in the tank too, and it was 96, 98 the other day. With a solid slider, but I mean, and I do believe there's more in the tank. It's a great body too. But so they do have those kind of exciting shutdown arms that you look for. Certainly Shane Van Dam is the third one. My concern would be maybe would be Sam Highfill. It feels like he's now less than 100% again. Stuff wasn't real good on Thursday in that series opener. They're already down Willardson. Logan Whitaker's been out with this like what did they say? Like an esophagus issue or something. He's lost like 20 or 25 pounds in the last couple weeks or so. I mean, it's some crazy thing. That's a weird deal that is obviously a concern. He's a key veteran arm, especially without Willardson. So, I mean, they've had to deal with a lot of injury stuff and people being out, and they've just kind of kept it going. They've had some disappointing losses that they keep bouncing back from. They've shown that late inning magic as they did twice this weekend. The walk-off win in the opener, and then a eighth inning come from behind win in the second game. It feels like there's more upside with them too, as kind of like Northeastern, like some other teams. Kansas State, you mentioned earlier, they have talented guys who haven't quite performed at peak level for a lot of the year, and I would certainly say that's the case with Eli Serrano. I would say that's the case even with Jacob Cozart, who seemed like he's been fighting it a lot this year. I mean, they have other guys who've done really well. Pennington has been a huge addition for him. Brandon Butterworth had been fighting it. Feels like maybe he's figuring some things out. Anyway, there's more upside, I think, in the tank for NC State, and for them to be where they are with the 3 series wins that they have, those high-end series wins and 12-9 in the league, they should feel really good about that. And I feel like it's a team that can still make a run down the stretch if they can get a little healthier on the mound.
Yeah. It's so funny, Fitzy, where you're talking. I'm trying to think of, like, I have this prominent thought this year. Like, I just feel so bullish on the ACC. And it's not like the league's coming out of nowhere. I don't want to portray it as been like an underachieving league in the past. That's not the case. But it feels, the top of the league feels deeper and better. And I guess this is the way I'm going to attempt to say it a different way. Those top 6 teams in the ACC, I'm going to go Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, Wake, and Florida State. Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, Wake, Virginia, and Florida State. Those are my top 6. Those all feel like hosts, but I'm not following it as closely as you guys are. So let me say it this way:
Yes,
if those 6 teams didn't win a regional, I would be actually surprised. Like, they feel like all 6 of those teams. Not only do they feel like a host to me, but they feel like a host who I'd be surprised to see them lose. And that feels different than a normal year in the ACC, where I feel like I usually have 2 or 3 or 4 teams that I'm super bullish on, and then some other teams where I'm like, I don't know, I could see them getting clipped in a regional.
I agree with your point earlier about teams 5 through 8 in the ACC. I like teams 5 through 8 in the ACC more than teams 5 through 8 in the SEC. I agree with you. I will say that if we're talking about the top 8 teams overall, I don't agree with you, because I just think the top 4 is where it really matters. And I still will take, obviously, the top 4 in the SEC over anyone. But I mean, in fact, the top 4 teams in our top 25 are all in the SEC, right?
Correct.
But I will say, like, I like all those ACC teams that you mentioned. I do. I like them all. I think they all have one thing in common, and that is really good position player groups. And that certainly also goes for Virginia Tech. It goes for NC State. I think it goes for Georgia Tech. The pitching, though, in that league is just, for me, suspect still. It's suspect. And again, that's why I think I still kind of like Duke long-term with their arms. I mean, Clemson continues to perform on the mound, even though they've been undermanned. And now they've got Tristan Smith back, which I think is huge. He'll work his way back up. Aiden Canuck, the freshman, I think deserves more publicity than he's gotten. He's won the ACC Pitcher of the Week, I think, a couple times now. He's real. He's got real stuff and pitchability and toughness, and he's a guy. So maybe I've been underselling Clemson's pitching a little bit. This year, so I'm gonna back off my concerns about them on the mound a little bit. I think maybe them and Duke feel like the team, and North Carolina too. I will say this: it sounds like they could be without Folger Boaz. I don't know if there's been an update on that. He left the game last week, I think. It sounds like he's going to miss some time. That's a huge blow. They're already down. Um, Knapp, who's supposed to be the Friday
Mhm.
guy heading into the season. Now you're down to another Friday guy. I mean, I do like Jason DeCaro, but he's 17 years old. He's electric. He might be 1-1 in 3 years, but he's 17 right now.
Mhm.
I like Shea Sprague a lot as a polished lefty that I think like that's a guy that feels like one of the more trustworthy guys in the whole ACC. And I like their bullpen, even though they gave up a couple leads to NC State this weekend. I'll put them in that category too, as a team that feels like they've got maybe the kind of pitching that can make a deep postseason run. I don't know that Virginia does. Florida State, if they can get healthy again, certainly does. But
Yeah,
they're
that's
down 2/3 of their rotation right now. And like the one guy, Arnold is a stud, one of the best pitchers in the country. But like they need to get those other two guys back. So I don't know. There's still a lot of question marks for me on the mound. But then again, that's the case pretty much everywhere in college baseball now. Like who's got pitching that you really trust besides Arkansas?
yeah. Yeah, and that's like it goes back to the original Arizona point. Like they've
Right.
got pitching that you can put your head on the pillow to, and it's awesome. I think my final point on the ACC, Fitzy, that I like about the league this year is it's been hard. Like the league's been rough on each other. Like it's been like I watched that Florida State Wake series, and I'm like, man, that's just like a Donnybrook. Like I love
Yeah.
that. Like that's
Yeah.
the stuff that gets you ready for the postseason, where you're getting your guts ripped out left and right. Like
Yeah.
that's the stuff. That's the SEC advantage, honestly.
Or that Duke Virginia Tech series was very similar in feel for me
Yes.
to that Florida State Wake Forest series, and both of those were similar in feel to the Kentucky Tennessee series, for instance. Like all three of
Mhm.
those felt very similar. Like it's just Donnybrook, was that the word you used?
Yeah.
You're right, and so it's a pretty good point that you make there.
Yeah. Very good. All right. So, one thing I want to encourage everybody, get on the website. If you don't have your subscription to D1Baseball.com or SEC Extra, take care of that immediately. We've got for most leagues, we've got 4 weekends left of the regular season. Then you've got conference tournaments. All the Nerdcast is a must listen every week. That's going to be every week now. That gets you caught up on what's going on every week from here on in, right, Fitzy?
Yep.
Yep. And then Joe's Wayward Waypoints, or yeah, Wayward Waypoints, is that no
Saturday.
Weekend
Saturday.
Waypoints?
Yeah.
Weekend Waypoints. Is it Wayward? What would be a Wayward Waypoint? That sounds
It
bad.
just goes
Sounds like
way off
you're
the
lost.
rails. Goes way off the rails. Like
That happens.
you
Yeah,
start
that
speaking in
happens.
French. That's a wayward
Yeah.
waypoint.
Yes. Now, one thing I started to tease in the beginning, but the Diamond Sports ranking stuff is pretty cool. Like I've
Yeah.
got myself in three things with the DSR stuff. One is they have a really cool way where they can show us who's hot. Like over the last month, who's gained the most places, right, in the rankings. Like I'll give you, for instance, in the last month, Western Kentucky in DSR has gone from 150th in the country to 67th. Like they are on a heater. Another cool thing is it's a great cross check. Like DSR helps us look at here are teams that DSR likes that RPI does not like as much. I'll give you an example. You guys talked about it recently, or we did in our chat. College of Charleston is sneaking around the CAA.
Yeah.
DSR has them ranked 28th. RPI has them ranked 65th. So that's interesting. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong. It's not about that. It's about, okay, that piques my interest. Like, let me do my own research. Like, remember, this is, we don't want the committees just, like, oh, give me the number, I swallow it whole and spit it back out, right? We want the committees doing research. We want them diving into these teams. College of Charleston, that was really interesting to me. Now, there's other things where, hey, RPI loves a school like Xavier, a program like Xavier. We love their program. It's a great program. RPI says they're 30th. DSR says they're 76th. That's very interesting to me. That caused me to do a deep dive on Xavier today, and I'm the better for it. We're all very excited about the year that Big East is having. So anyway, tons of great stuff on the website right now. Man, it is incredible how I can't believe this, Fitzy. We'll wrap with this. There are 4 weekends left in the regular season. Like we'll be at conference tournaments, and literally, Fitzy, you and I will be in a conference tournament in less than 30 days. How does that shake you?
It shakes me to my core runes.
Does that feel like a wayward waypoint as opposed to a weekend
So
waypoint?
it's a wayward waypoint. I can't believe we're 10 weeks into the season. Is that what we got?
How did that happen?
11? I don't know. We're cruising, man. This always happens.
Yes, always happens. So, all right, that's it. Everybody have a great week. There will be a preview show this Thursday night. I may not be part of it because I have a game. I've got that really cool ALS game, Virginia at Boston College, at Fenway Park with the great Mike Monaco, the
Mm.
just magnificent Danny Wexelman. That will be
Yeah.
really, really fun.
What a crew.
Yeah, what a crew, right? Just rock star after rock star. So that is it. Everyone have a great week, and we will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.